Hey, happy campers, Todd here, Great American RV. We are going to do a technical walkthrough on the 2025 Grand Design Reflection fifth wheel. Should cover just about everything for a technical walkthrough for these items. So if you need a refresher on how everything operates, this is a place to be so you can go through the whole unit. Your unit should have very similar products in them. If you want a deeper dive on these products or the products that you have, you can find that in the Haps Helpful Hacks section of our Great American RV YouTube channel. If you got any questions, leave them down in the comments. We're going to start up front. We have our fifth wheel hitch, obviously right here. We have a little light up in the front for hookup. That switch is going to be right here, 12-volt lighting right there. On here, we're going to have our breakaway box. So our breakaway box has our pin on it. Our pin needs to be hooked to the truck itself, not the actual fifth wheel hitch. Reason being is if something happens to the fifth wheel hitch, you want this pin to pull out, and then this will activate the brakes on your trailer to bring it to a stop. Now, that can only happen if we have a good 12-volt battery on our unit. If not, we're not going to have any 12-volt charge to be able to send to those brakes. So always make sure this pin is inserted and make sure we have a good 12-volt battery in there. Beyond that, we'll have our 7-way plug right here. That 7-way plug is what will actually connect to our truck to feed all of our running lights on our trailer. And those lights will not have any fuses from here to the lights. Those fuses are going to be located under the hood of your towing vehicle. You can generally find them in your owner's manual. They're going to say towing left turn, towing right turn, stuff like that. You're also going to have a battery charge line that pulls off of your alternator of your vehicle, going to your battery on your trailer to help charge it up while you're traveling down the road. And then lastly, you'll have one from your brake controller passing through here that will activate whenever you hit your brakes on your vehicle to go ahead and activate the brakes on your trailer. As we move into our front compartment right here, we can notice we have a leveling system. This is an electric leveling system. My biggest tip about these is whenever you disconnect from your truck, at least count 6 holes on your legs whenever you drop them down, because if you don't do that, your unit may run out of stroke. So if you're having an issue where your leveling system says out of stroke, that means that these legs aren't extended enough to level out your unit. So we only have so much leg here that can come out, and if we don't put at least 6 holes in there, you're probably going to run into that issue. So that's that little tip there. These do have overrides on them. Little black caps right here at the bottom pop out. Put your socket in there. We have a video that goes over the electric override of the front jacks, and then of course our rear jacks in the back over there. You want to check that video out in our Haps Helpful Hacks section. We do have an inverter prep, so we'll see our 110 line looped up right there. You would cut that line and tie it into your inverter if you added one. What an inverter does is it changes 12-volt power from your battery into 110 power, so you can power up some small appliances, coffee maker, TV, phone charger, stuff like that inside your camper if you were to upgrade to that system. We're going to have our Furrion solar controller right here. We do have solar panels on this unit. This controller converts charging the solar power to charging power for your 12-volt system right there. Pretty well plug and play. We need to set the proper battery system that we have in there. You can go to your owner's manual from that. It's pretty well plug and play for lead acid battery systems if you have that hooked up in there. To the right of it is going to be our solar disconnect. So if we want to disconnect that solar system, basically shut it off, just hit that off switch right there at the top. Then we're going to have our battery disconnect, little red switch right there that says on. That is going to be separate from our solar. So if we turn our battery disconnect off, our solar still stays connected. So when do we use our battery disconnect? We use our battery disconnect when we are storing our unit unplugged. So put it in a storage yard, we don't have it hooked up to 110 or 50 amp service or whatever, then we want to turn this off so it disconnects our battery, okay? It's like pulling these lines off of here. During that process, if we leave our solar on, it will actually charge our battery while it's sitting there, of course, as long as we have sunlight to our solar panels. We want to leave it on anytime we are plugged in or using our camper, period. Even if we're not plugged in, but we're using our camper, that switch will need to be on. It will need to be on when we're plugged in, so the converter system which is right above it, will actually charge our battery up while we're using our camper, okay? So moving over to our converter system, that changes 110 to 12 volts, so it's basically a battery charger, okay? If you notice that your battery system is not getting 13.5 volts charging whenever you are plugged in, we want to go in and check these fuses right here to make sure that they're not blown. If they are blown, change them out. If they seem to be okay and the system is not putting out proper voltage, but we are getting good 110 power into it, then we probably have a bad converter. Once again, another leveling jack off to the side. We have our box where our battery would go right there. Up above it, we have our leveling controller right here. This is for our leveling system. We have 30 amp max fuses right here for each jack. We can see everything labeled right here. It's where all our controls go, and this is what reads when our unit is level. We'll have another sensor in our underbelly down towards the back that we cannot see, but that is all part of your leveling system. As we move around, we're going to have a propane tank on each side. And that propane tank is going to go to our dual propane regulator. As we notice on the top, we have this little lever right here. We can move back and forth. We see a little arrow on it. That arrow points to a hose. This hose will go to that particular tank. Now keep in mind, all these hoses are rubber. Over time, they are going to crack and degrade. We want to make sure that we change them out when they start looking like they're in bad shape. That can lead to a propane leak, which is obviously very dangerous. So keep an eye on that kind of stuff. Beyond that, we are choosing which tank is our primary tank off of our regulator. So wherever this lever is facing, that's our primary tank. We turn our tanks on. We can see our gauge right there will read green when our tanks are full. It will eventually go down to red when they're empty. So if we're on this primary tank here and it goes empty, it's automatically going to feed off of the tank on the other side. That way you're not interrupted in propane flow. Now if we come out here and we notice that it is red, we can go ahead and swap over. If we have enough in that other tank, it should turn back green, and we can go ahead and get this one filled, and that becomes our new secondary tank. Off to the side on our marker lights in the front, we can notice we do have these little caps right here. They are pre-wired and prepped for our Furrion tri-camera system. So you have a camera on each side to help you with that blind spot. Tri meaning 3, we're gonna have a backup camera on the back that we'll see in a little while. As we move into our storage compartment right here, we have our electronic leveling system. We'll go over information on that right now. So we can see our electronic leveling system right here made by Lippard. If we kick it on, we can see on our main display right here, we're gonna have our battery voltage. Whenever we hit our arrows, it brings us to our auto hitch height. Our auto hitch height is used after we have been camping. Basically, this will bring us back to the point that the trailer was at whenever we disconnected from our hitch on the truck, so you don't have to guess what level it needs to be at. If you want to use that feature, you just hit enter and it will begin to extend those jacks out and put it at the height that it was in before you went into that auto level. Our next one is auto retract all. We would go to that once we are hooked up to the truck. We can hit enter and it will retract all of our jacks. Now you should definitely double check your fifth wheel hitch and ensure that you are locked in before you do this, because once you pull away, all the weight and everything relies on that fifth wheel hitch at that point. So be sure you're locked in good before you hit that auto retract all. Our next one is auto retract rear. If we want to just bring up the rear jacks and leave the front landing jacks down, we can go through that. And our last one is manual level. Manual level is if we wanted to go in, hit enter, and we can see right here we have our degree marks. Now 0 is our ultimate goal. That would mean that we're level. We would use these functions right here to raise those jacks. You'll have orange lights that pop up in the corners to let you know that those are indicating the areas where it is low. So if this blinking light on the left hand side is orange, then that means that our left side is low. Same thing on the right, front, and rear. So we would just raise that until that light goes out, and eventually once we hit that 0 mark, our green light in the middle will indicate that we are leveled out. If we need to retract those jacks, we'll just hold down that retract button for just a second. Our red light will come on indicating retract, and we can hit those buttons again and it will retract those jacks. Now front will run front, rear will run rear, and then if we want to do left or right, it will do those left or right jacks.
To take off that retract, you just hold that button down for a second and it will go back. Now auto retract will once again retract everything. And our next one, it shows us our stroke on our jacks. So the LF and RF, that's left front and right front. So this is the amount that those jacks are extended out. And they only have so much stroke on them depending on what jacks they are. So if we stroke out and we run out of jack, you will get an error letting you know out of stroke. And that means that we need to put some blocks or get on a more level area that it doesn't have any more jack left to level that system, and it will stop the auto level. Same thing, left rear, right rear for our jacks.
Also on this system, right whenever you turn it on, you can get your voltage display on there. And if you want to just operate your front landing gears, you just got to the campground, you're trying to disconnect from your truck, you don't have to go into that manual mode. You can go straight into operation by hitting those front jacks right there, and that will operate the landing gears in the front. Same thing if you want to retract them, hold down that retract for a second, and then it will operate once again just the front landing gears. From that point, you go into your auto level and allow the unit to level out. Now I want to make sure that we're not moving around in the unit while it is auto leveling. It'll take a few minutes to hit that auto level point. Once it says it's complete, then you're free to go ahead and open up your doors and get inside the unit and start setting everything up.
Now in the event that you run auto level and you've done it several times and your unit just isn't leveling out properly, it might have to do with the zero on that system. Zero meaning the level, right? Just like we talked about earlier as far as in our manual level when we hit that, what our actual level point is. So what we want to do is we turn our system off and we can hit front and rear 10 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And we can see we're now in our 0-point calibration. Now I know I'm going to hear people say you only have to hit it 5 times for electric and 10 times for hydraulic. I always tell people just 10 because it's the easiest way to remember which is what, right? Eventually you'll hit into the 0 point. And what we want to do now is we want to manually level out our unit. We want to get a 4-foot level, put it on the inside of our unit, and operate these jacks until that 4-foot level shows us that we are level left to right and front to back. Once it is done, we hit enter, and then we can reset our 0-point calibration. It'll go through a stability check. Once again, we don't want to move around, jump around, or anything like that. Whenever it's done, it'll beep, say success, and now you have just made a new 0 point for your system. If you have to keep changing that 0 point, resetting it, then you want to bring it into a shop, let it get looked at. That way we can see what's going on. There may be an issue with the leveling sensor in the rear, or it might have came loose. Now you do have a Bluetooth option on here. You'll find that sticker that you need with the QR code or the password and stuff right here. If not, I'll show you in the front compartment where it is. But if you scan this QR code right here, this will bring you to the App Store, and that will give you the app whether you have an Android or Apple, and it will give you the app that you need to download for that Lippert system. I will notice here we're in our front compartment and we have our main computer system for that auto level, and we can see on the side we have those QR codes as well as the password. We download that app and we're going to have to put in information like our VIN number and stuff like that, and then it's going to ask to scan the QR code or enter the password and device name, and when we do that, that will connect us to that app and the app to that system and allow us to be able to control some of those features from our phone. To the right of that, we're going to have our Lippert tire link system. So we have our tire sensors hooked up on our unit, and this is our link up, okay? So this is where the Bluetooth sensors are gonna read, and we can monitor our tire pressure and our temperature on this system right here. If we need to pair new sensors, we hold down that button right there, and we can pair those sensors as we screw them on. This is a little 12-volt monitored, 12-volt powered system right there. And as we move over right here, we're going to have our water control system. So at the top here, we have a quick connect for our coiled hose. We hook up, have hot and cold. We have our cable inputs right here. So this is your input, not your output. We hook our satellite up if we have a tripod satellite or a automatic satellite, plug it in right there. Inside our camper to output for our satellite
cable from the campground hooks up right here. Auxiliary, if you have a DVD player or something like that, you want to transmit to all the auxiliary, would be a secondary satellite, something like that. Over to the right, we're going to have our water pump. Water pump is going to pull from our fresh tank, which we'll talk about in a minute. 12 volt operated. It's going to be behind this panel right here. We got a couple of square head screws. Let's go ahead and pull that off, take a look real quick. All right, as we look behind our water system right here, we can see our water pump. Okay, water pump, let's go on this side. Water pump, 12 volt pump right there, gonna pull from that fresh tank. We can see a little screen right there, that is on the inlet side. That's gonna catch any debris and stuff like that. Want to go ahead and clean that out on a regular basis. Sometimes I get a little algae and stuff like that in there. So you want to maintain that properly in your system. Like I said, 12 volts going to feed off of our battery powered operate. So coming back to the front right here, we have all our controls for our water. We have dry camping water from tank. So our fresh tank, that's onboard storage on our unit. We would go ahead and turn to that configuration, turn our water pump on, and it's going to pull from our water tank. Now we use that when we don't have city water at the campsite where we're at, so dry camping. We pull over at a rest stop or we're out in a rural area, then we go ahead and use that water system. Now we have to pre-fill that tank before we head out, right? So we go to this power fill tank system right here, city inlet to tank. We can go ahead and turn it to that configuration there. Hook our city water up, so we're still at the house, hook a water hose up here, turn it to that configuration, turn the water on, and that's going to begin to fill the tank. Now we monitor that from our monitor on the inside and know when that tank is full, but don't worry, if we overfill it, we have a couple of overflow hoses that water will overflow on. We'll show you underneath. Now the thing about our onboard storage tank is it is obviously going to add some weight to it with all that water, so only take what you think you'll need. And also after your camping trip, make sure to dump it out so that water doesn't become stagnant inside that tank. Next is going to be our city water connection. So if we have a water hookup at the campsite, we're going to turn to that configuration, hook up right here, turn our water on, and that's going to bring water straight to all of our fixtures on our unit. To the right, we have winterize, siphoned to fixtures via pump. So that setup right there, we would hook our hose up right here and put it into a tank of antifreeze, kick that water pump on, and that's going to pull the antifreeze through the hose and pump it out to all our fixtures. We have a video that goes over winterization of units. It's going to go into a deeper dive on how to do that, and then you also have your owner's manual that will be more specific to this type of unit. To the right and bottom of that, we have siphon, sanitize to tank via pump. Now this is going to do the same thing as winterization, except you would use a mixture of bleach and water. Hook a water hose up to this, then into that tank of bleach and water, pump it, and that's going to fill your fresh tank full of that bleach water mixture. Then we can sanitize that. If you want to sanitize your lines, you go to dry camping and then turn your pump on, and that'll pump all that water to those lines there. Beyond that, we're going to have this black hookup right here. That is for our black tank flush. We use that to flush out our black tank. So with that being said, let's talk about dumping our tanks. We have our 4-inch outlet right there we'd hook our sewer hose up to, and then we would generally have a port at the campsite. Some state parks and stuff don't have ports at site, so of course you'd have to wait till you get to your dump station to do this process. But in the event you are ready to dump, we have our gray tanks and our black tank. You may have a numerous different amount of configurations. Maybe it's 1 gray tank, 2 black tanks, just depends on the floor plan on your unit. You may even have a second port somewhere towards the rear of the unit that has its own individual valve. All of this is going to work the exact same way. So gray tanks is our shower water, okay? Everything from our shower and our sinks, our kitchen sink, our bathroom sink, and our shower generally are going to go into our gray tank. Now, as long as you have your your sewer hose hooked up and you have a port where you're at, you can actually leave these gray tank valves open all the time and just let that water run out. Gray tanks can fill up kind of fast if you have multiple people in there using the sinks and showers, so on and so forth. Kind of a pain to have to go dump that out every time. Black tank, however, whether you have your sewer hose hooked up or not, you leave that closed until you're ready to dump. Reason being is we are putting solids into that tank, and if you don't leave water in that tank, those solids are going to dry up. So with that being said, we have our valve closed, and we always have several gallons of fresh, clean water in that tank, so those sediments can't dry up in our system, toilet paper, solids, stuff like that. So valve closed, several gallons of water. Now let's say we're ready to dump. We have our sewer hose hooked up. We pull that black tank valve, we let everything start flowing out. We can hook a water hose up to our black tank flush right here. That is going to lead to a jet port on the other side of our tank and kind of spray that tank down, help move some of those solids to our valve to be able to close it off. Now we have some pro tips on how to flush out your black tank, pretty popular video on YouTube. You can find that in our helpful hacks section on the Great American RV YouTube channel. Now once we're satisfied with flushing, we can go ahead and close this valve off, add some water to it, either via our black tank flush or through our toilet, but we want to make sure we have several gallons of clean water in that system, and then add our chemicals in there when we are done flushing out our tank. Now a little tip right here, if you want to, on your last night, close off your gray tanks and build up a little water in there. After you flush out your black tank, you can open up your gray tank valves and flush out that sewer hose. Just a little tip there, if you want to do that, you can certainly do that. If not, that's fine. Beyond that, we're generally going to have a GFCI protected outlet outside. GFCI is going to be in any water area. So our kitchen, our bathroom, outside, all those are going to be GFCI protected. We'll show you where to go if those ever trip out, how to go ahead and reset them. All right, so moving on, we have our Furrion tankless water heater system right here. So on-demand system. Turn that little notch right there and we can open up our cover, pull it off, and look behind it. So 12 volts to power this up. We have an on-off switch right here. This is generally a technician switch, but if your system's ever off, just want to come over here and make sure that switch is on, okay? Beyond that, you have a little fuse right here in line for our system. Want to check and make sure that that fuse isn't blown if you ever have any power issues. Over to the right, we're going to kind of see back there little copper lines and stuff. That's where our water system flows through. 12 volts to power, propane to heat the water. Once again, on demand, so once you get it going, it's going to keep that water hot until you are done with it. And we see our flow valve right here. This is the flow of water going into our system. So this is the inlet portion right here. We want to go ahead and regulate that however needed. Generally, you're going to have that at max, so max flow in, max flow out, right? Below that, you're going to see that little black cap right there. That black cap does have a little screen. Want to pull that out and clean it every so often. Have this clear tube right here. That is for our overflow prevention valve, and that is if this system ever builds up too much pressure or gets too hot, it will go ahead and open up and relieve the pressure so this tank on here doesn't combust. So we want to make sure that this isn't, of course, spewing out water. If it is, we have an issue, but it's okay to generally see a couple drips of water come out of that, no problem. The brass fixture underneath, we'll notice, is our drain valve for this system. We would go ahead and open that up and drain this system out to prep it for winterization. Over to the right of that, we're going to have our furnace, 12 volts to power it up, propane to heat that air. Our exhaust will come out right here, so that air will be kind of hot. Little metal fixture is going to be kind of hot. Keep that in mind. In order to access the internal guts of our furnace right here, we would pull these screws off right here. We could pull that cover off. We have a video that takes a deeper dive into that stuff and all the components on the inside, but as long as your air is heating, you should be good. Make sure that no insects building nests in that exhaust or anything else. To the right of that, you're going to have a 30 or 50 amp service depending on the power on your unit. We always want to plug this in, turn it to the right and lock it in, and then take our little retainer ring right here, tighten it up. Kids will play around with all this stuff. You don't want them unplugging your unit. After you've locked in right here, then we plug into our shore power cord over there, outlet over there, and then we're good to go. We want to avoid plugging it in over there first and then plugging it in here to avoid any arcing or anything like that on this plug whenever we plug it into our unit. So good idea to plug this in first before we plug it in over there. On this one, we see if you have a stovetop in your kitchen area, in your kitchen slide, which most of them do, we'll have a quick connect right here on the side. That just makes it easier if your slide out ever has to be repaired or anything. This is just an easy disconnect. But we'll have another one on the other side. We can see a shutoff valve right here. If we have any leaks or anything in our system, we can go ahead and just shut it off right there. That is, once again, a quick connect. If you want flow going to your stovetop, of course, flip that on. On our slide outs, this one in particular is an electric rack and pinion slide. We can see our ram going into our frame right there. That ram is going to be electric. The motor is going to be up in the underbelly and not visible to us, okay? When we run that in and out, that electric motor is just activating. It's a 12-volt motor that's going to drive that in and out. Your override is going to be found sticking out of the frame on the opposite side, little post sticking out, 3/4 inch socket you put on there, and you can run this slide in and out in order to override it. Pretty simple slide out system. Some of the ones you might find on here too is a Schwintek slide, which will have a worm gear mechanism right here and up top that is silver or black. But most oftentimes on these 100 and 150 series, you're going to find that rack and pinion 12-volt slide. Very easy to override if something ever happens to it. On your rear jacks, you can see a plug on the bottom of those, just like your front jacks, in order to override. To the right of that, we see that white valve. That is to dump our fresh tank system. That way that water doesn't become stagnant. We can relieve some weight off of our unit. We would do that there. And then 2 blue hoses next to it are going to be our overflows in the event that we overflow that tank. To the right of that, little sewage storage right there. We can go ahead and open that up, throw our sewer hose in there. And we can see a little hole right here in this slide out. That is the override for the slide out opposite of us. When you see that post sticking out, that's how we would drive that slide out in the event that something happened to our motor. Backing up a little bit on this slide out, we'll see a vent right there. That vent is over our stovetop. Our microwave is going to have a fan on it to be able to ventilate out while we're cooking. We want to make sure that that vent is unlatched and open so the air can actually ventilate out. When we store our unit, it's a good idea to push those in so no insects build any nests in there. On the back of our unit, we're going to have a ladder to access our roof. We want to make sure that we are doing that. Your owner's manual is going to tell you, and I'm going to tell you, every 60 to 90 days, we need to get up on that roof and check our sealant around all of our vents, around the side rails of our rubber, and then of course our side rails and everything on our unit. Check all of that sealant. Make sure we're not having any cracking, but peeling, deterioration, opening, anything of that nature, because then we're going to allow water entry into our unit. Number 1 decay of every unit out there, and this is considered customer maintenance. Just like changing oil in your car, you need to go and check the sealants on your unit. Every 60 to 90 days, the manual is going to tell you manufacturers are not going to participate in water leaks if you're not keeping up with the maintenance on your unit, so make sure we're doing that on a regular basis. Also suggest washing your roof at least twice a year. Do a good inspection on it after trips. Make sure no low-lying tree limbs hit the rubber, cut the rubber, anything like that. Take care of that roof, whether you keep it in a barn, under a cover, out in the sun, no matter what, check that roof and your sealants on a regular basis. Water leaks are the last thing you want to deal with. Up top, you're going to see prep for your backup camera system. It is pre-wired for that system. Whenever you turn your running lights on, that camera will power up and you can see behind you while you're traveling down the road, and it also link in with your side cameras that you have the option of adding as well. On the back, you have a little receiver hitch right here. We can see we are prepped to tow. We have the hookups right here. We have a 4-way plug right there just to obey the weight rating on that receiver hitch. Keep that in mind. As we wrap around the side right here, we'll see a little safety pin lock used for the spare tire. A little hole right here. We can see we pull that pin off and we can go ahead and put our turn key on there, and we can drop our spare tire out in the event that we have a flat and need to use it. We've got that option. This slide out, another electric ram slide out, and we'll notice our override. Our override is going to be on the other side over there. Not quite visible from here, but this is an electric slide. We have that gear mechanism right there. This is your ram we have another video, like I said, that goes over more information on that system. Out here, we're going to see cable and satellite hookups for our outdoor TV, as well as another GFCI protected 110 outlet. As we move on down, we're going to see that override right there above our tires on this one for that opposite slide out, like I said. We can talk about our awning real quick. 12-volt powered awning, we'll see how to operate that from the inside, but it's just a push button, runs our awning in and out. We have two awnings on this particular unit. They're both going to be the same. This is mainly a sunshade, okay? It's not built to like an umbrella to prevent you from the rain. It can take a little light drizzle, little dew. Of course, you're going to have some condensation from your AC roll out on top of it, stuff like that. That's all fine and dandy. What we want to do though is we want to pitch our awning, which means lean it. Okay, you can do this at the rear arm or the front arm, whichever way you want that water to drain off. That's the side you need to do it on. Real easy. Grab this arm right here at this bolt, pull it down. Now we've pitched our awning and that water will roll off right here to this area. If you want it to do it in the front instead, you can do that. That's fine. But we want to prevent that water from building up in the middle of our awning right here, causing weight in the middle, and then a collapse and a catastrophe, okay? So make sure we're pitching that awning, make sure we have a heavy rain, anything like that, roll that awning in. High winds, roll that awning in. If you're leaving your camper for an extended period of time, roll that awning in. You don't want to deal with that insurance claim, much less the heartache whenever you get back to your camper, okay? 12-volt powered lights right here. Your wiring for your awning and your lights are going to come out of your front arm. We can see the wiring coming out right there, passing through and going to our motor head, which is always going to be our front awning arm. Side camera option right there if we want it. We got it. We have another propane tank in this front compartment right here, and another GFCI protected outlet in our pass-through bay, and then that is our override crank, or our crank handle rather, for like our slide out, stuff like that. You can use a little drill to run that stuff into if you want. Up to you, however you want to handle it. Over here, oh, one more thing here. We have our quick connect right here, just like under the slide out on the other side, but this one is for an external grill. If you want to use a grill outside, you have that option. Once again, quick connect option. You have your on and off lever right here. If this lever is on, you can see we can't hook that quick connect up, right? So if it is off, now we can open it up to hook up our quick connect. But once we do, we need to turn that lever back on so gas will actually flow out. To disconnect, flip that lever off to disconnect, and then just put your little cap back in there so no dirt divers build any nest in there. Under your unit, you're also going to see a blue and red line. Those are your low point drains. These are for winterization. Whenever you're ready to winterize, that's the first place you're going to go to drain all the water out of your system. They are the lowest points on your unit, so that's where all the water will fall to drain that out. Quite a few steps to winterization. You want to check your owner's manual or our video on Hap's Helpful Hacks. On our entry door, in most cases, you are going to have friction hinges, okay? So that means we're going to have some resistance on that door to keep the wind from slamming it open or closed. We have a little magnetic latch right there off to the side, and we have our solid steps. Now, a good idea anytime we're bringing these steps down or up to have your door all the way open. That way we're not tearing up our screen and stuff right here from this little bracket. So we have our door open, lift our steps up, and we lock them in. Sometimes you have to pull this little latch to get it to lock in the frame. Just make sure it's in, give it a little tug, and we're good to go. We're ready to pull it out, pull that little latch, and we can drop our steps down. Now, key thing about the steps is after we have done our auto level on our jack system, we want to make sure we level out these steps. In order to do that, we have a little silver tab right here. We just go ahead and squeeze it in, and now we can adjust our legs until our steps are level. Now, when are they level? When we have a nice flush threshold right here. And then, of course, we're also looking to make sure that we don't have any contact with our frame here and our frame on our door. Seeing a lot of people make that mistake and damage their doors. So keep that in mind before you start opening and closing that door, that we level out our steps properly. As you walk on the inside, generally right next to your door, you're going to find your Compass Connect system. This does have an app you can download. You can Bluetooth connect to it, and you can operate some of this stuff from your phone. You can monitor your tanks from your phone, all that stuff. So pretty simple system. Buttons off, on. We can control our ceiling lights, our awning lights, our porch light. You'll have tank heaters. If you do, that is a 12-volt mat that goes to your gray tank, black tank, fresh tanks, all that stuff, to keep that stuff from freezing up in cold weather. It will heat those tanks and prevent that from happening. We have our 12-volt water pump option right here, as well as outside. That's once again to pull water from our fresh tank. Now the thing about that water pump is it's an on-demand water pump. So it's only going to operate when we turn on our sinks, our showers, or stuff like that. So anytime you hear it running, generally water's in use. If you're certain all of your water is off and you still hear that water pump running, you want to come make sure that your fresh tank is not empty. Or if it isn't empty, we want to make sure we don't have a leak somewhere in our system, in which case we want to turn that water pump off. You can end up burning up that water pump if it just continuously runs. So keep an ear out for that kind of stuff. You're going to have your gauge up here that tells you fresh tank, black tank, gray tank, all of your levels right there, as well as your battery level there. Our awnings extend and retract, our slide outs in and out. Pretty self-explanatory, all 12-volt operation right here. Easy system to deal with. Up above, we're going to have our Travel Fly system. That is the internet on the go. We can go ahead and have a SIM card and subscribe to that and have internet with us wherever we go and hook it up so we can have Wi-Fi. Generally, you're going to have a vent fan in your kitchen area, maybe even your bathroom, and they're going to have that max air fan right here, on off for your fan, and then vent open and close. Pretty self-explanatory. We have our Furrion AC system right here for our rear AC and also heat. We'll go over that information right now. We'll start with our cool option first. Our cool will cool the air throughout our unit. We of course set our thermostat to whatever point we want it to be, and we have our fan speed options. We have low and high. For low and high, that fan will run all the time. Now whenever we want that fan to cut off, whenever the compressor cuts off, much like we likely do at home, we have it on auto. That system will shut off and on with the compressor. Our next mode is our heat mode. Our heat mode activates our gas-powered furnace on our unit. We choose our set point, and our heater will come on whenever necessary. There is fan speeds on here, but it does not change the fan speed on that furnace. It is a single fan speed on there controlled by the furnace board. Our next mode is our fan mode. Our fan mode simply circulates air throughout our unit without cooling it or anything. This will come out of our rooftop air, and we can just change from high to low to control that fan speed if we wish. That fan will stay on the entire time when we have it in our fan mode. Our last mode is our dry mode. Our dry mode is like a dehumidifier. We can choose our set point, and it will cool our unit down to that set point, and it will continue to cool past that, but alternate every 6 to 10 minutes off and on. That way it doesn't drop that temperature too low and freeze you out of the unit, but it still dries the air in your unit. Another thing to note with our furnace is that the air is going to come out of the vents on the floor. It's not going to come out of the rooftop air. Your only rooftop air is going to be your fan and your cool and your dry. Your heat will come out of those floor vents from the furnace. Somewhere in your unit for this layout, it happens to be in the kitchen right inside this cabinet door. If we open that up, we see all of our breaker system. Now this is a 50 amp system, so we have two 50 amp breakers right here. If it was a 30 amp system, we'd have 30 amp breakers. We have our ACs, our converter, fireplace, inverter prep, all that stuff right here. And at the bottom, we see our GFCI. So remember all the outlets I was telling you in wet locations? This is where you're going to go to reset it. If you ever need to test that system, push that white button right there. It's going to trip that breaker, turn it off, and turn it back on. So that also simulates what's going to happen if it ever trips, right? It's just going to go like that, turn it off, turn it back on. Now, what causes those GFCIs to trip? Either they get wet or we have too many heating elements plugged into them. So that means griddles, coffee makers, stuff like that can overload that circuit. So if it immediately trips after you reset it, you need to go check and make sure those outlets aren't wet or that you had too much stuff plugged into it, in which case just start unplugging some items and then go back and reset it. Above that, you're going to have your 12-volt panel right here. That's with all your 12-volt fuses for all your 12-volt items, which are also labeled right here on this cover. So if you have any 12-volt issues, you want to come look right here first and check that out. All right, right behind me on the island is our propane gas detector, or LP detector. And we're going to see a green light signifying that it is powered up. This is going to be 12-volt hardwired into your unit. Little test button right below it to test the alarm on it. These do have a 5-year lifetime to them. The date is going to be printed on the back or on the front of it. Generally, you can tell by the year of your unit what the year of the CO detector is. So 5 years, it's a 2025 unit, 5 years, and this thing's a wrap. We need to go ahead and replace it with a new one so we make sure that our family is staying safe. The alarm ever goes off, you want to evacuate your unit. You're also going to have a smoke detector in here, right there in the hallway, 9-volt powered. You know the drill, every daylight savings, check that 9-volt battery and make sure that it is good on there. And then of course we want to make sure that we know that those have a 10-year lifespan on them as well. Furrion 12-volt refrigerator right here, very simple to use, off grid, and cold to colder, okay? Just runs just like a clock. Run all the way to the right and it is coldest. So off is going to shut this system down. That's what you want to do when you store it, unless you want it plugged in and running, you can go ahead and do that. But keep in mind, and this goes for outdoor refrigerators also, which are 110 powered, not 12 volt. Anytime you plug in your unit, this is going to be on generally. So whenever you shut your unit off, this is all going to defrost, right? We're going to end up with water in our freezer. That water can puddle up and leak out and damage our wood components around our fridge, and manufacturers aren't going to cover that type of repair. So we want to make sure we defrost when we go to store our unit, wipe all this down, make sure we get the water out of it so we don't damage it, and then of course wipe down our fridge too, because that'll also help prevent mold and mildew in that fridge. Up here with that off-grid option, that is for when you are running off of just 12 volts, all right? Just your battery power, you're dry camping somewhere. We're trying to conserve our battery power. We go ahead and turn on to off-grid, and that is gonna lower the amount of work that the compressor is using to cool your items in your fridge, and therefore reducing power use. Now keep in mind when you use that, you want to make sure you reduce the amount of opening and closing of that door so your items will actually stay cold, okay? Once again, 12-volt powered for that refrigerator. Microwave up here, we have that fan option that's going to ventilate out of here. We talked about the vent outside. We need to make sure that that is open. We have our Furrion stovetop right here. Glass cover needs to be down anytime we are in travel, and then of course lift it up when we are ready to cook. So ready to cook, we have our propane on outside, and we just turn our burner on, and then we go to cranking up. All right, we got them posted up. We can see we have a little air in the line right there, okay? Now, you're always going to end up with air in your system after you store your unit and you turn your propane tanks off. Not a problem, okay? That propane is going to dissipate in the line from being stored. Not a big deal. First thing you want to do is come over to your stovetop and light your stovetop. It took probably 50 clicks to go ahead and get it cranked up. Once we got it cranked up, it's burning real nice. We're going to let it run for about 30 to 60 seconds. Let that air purge out of line. We always want to go ahead and bleed the air out of our system first before we go operate things like our water heater or our furnace or even our oven down at the bottom, because those will go into a fault and then you have to recycle everything, all that stuff. This is all manual, so and the gas flows a lot faster. It's a lot easier to bleed the air out of this system before you operate that stuff and bring it into a fault. Whenever you're done, just shut them off. You're good to go. We can go ahead and close that top right there. And as we move down, we have our oven, okay? So our burner is gonna be down here at the bottom. The thing about our oven is we have to turn to that light right there and to the flame icon right there and push down on this knob and then initiate our striker right there. Now our oven is going to take a little bit longer to light the first time that we light it. After we light it that first time, after we bled the air out, then it's going to be a lot quicker, so just keep that in mind. Once again, turn it to the flame icon, hit that striker. I can't do it because I only have one hand available, but once it lights, we have a thermocouple down there. We need to let that thermocouple warm up for about 20 seconds or so with that pilot flame, and then we're going to let off of this knob and turn it to our temperature, and then we should see our burner tube light up. Now, the thing about that is if we don't hold it down long enough for that thermocouple to sense that the flame is lit, then we just need to shut our system off, go back to this, and then relight our pilot. Not a big deal, just know that that's how you got to use it, right? As we move over, have our main TV system in our living room area, and behind your main TV, you're going to have your antenna booster. See a little red light right there? That signifies our antenna boost is on. So we have an antenna on top of our roof that picks up all of our air channels, all those free channels you get. We want to make sure that is on whenever we go to scan for channels on our TV. And then when we are scanning for cable channels, if we have that cable hookup at the campground, we want to make sure that is off. If we don't turn it off, it's going to scramble the channels from the campground and then cause an issue with trying to get those channels whenever you're scanning for those. So off for cable, on for antenna, and down below that we'll have our satellite input right here from the outside. If we have a satellite, we run that to our receiver and then out with the HDMI to our TV. Up above our TV, we have our Bluetooth hookup on a radio system. You're going to see a HDMI input right here. We can go ahead and hook up our PlayStation or anything to that, and then that's going to feed through the back of it an HDMI wire to our TV. Up to you whether you want to hook it here or here. So there's radio, Bluetooth, all that stuff on here, and then of course you're going to have your zones A and B for indoor and outdoor speakers, 12-volt powered radio system there. Down below that, we're going to have our 110 fireplace. If you don't like gas heat, you can crank this on. Power button right there, and you're going to have a remote that has these exact same buttons on here too as an option, okay? Power button there. We can change our flame lighting right here. We can turn our actual heat on right here with those wavy lines. So we have from, I think it maxes at 82. Once we have it on, we have the up and down arrows to go ahead and change on. That heater's just going to run all the time, or you can have it on a thermostat, 64 degrees to 82, and you can just keep on pushing once you get to on, and it'll just reset. If you want to turn that system off, just hit the wavy lines again, that system will turn off. You can have a timer as well from from 1 hour to 8 hours on here, and that's how long that system will run and then shut off. If you want everything off, you can turn that off. If you want just the ambiance of the lighting on there, you can do that too without the heater. Over here, fold out couch, pull it out. We have another bed right here, our recliners right here, dinette sofa, all that kind of stuff. Anything in your slide out, your lighting and stuff right there, it's going to be separate from your touch panel. You're only going to have a little switch right there. Some of them have push buttons on them as well, so you can select which lights you actually want on to reduce the lighting if you wish. Moving into our bathroom, we can see we have our hot, cold, and our shower, obviously, and then we're going to have a vent in our bathroom, controllable by a little switch right here, 12-volt vent. We want to go ahead and use that definitely when we're taking a shower. Helps reduce the heat and humidity in our bathroom, and we can help reduce the opportunity for mold and mildew to build up in this area. Besides that, obviously we're going to have our toilet. For our toilet, what are we putting in there? Liquids and solids, number 1 and number 2. Also, we're going to use RV toilet paper only and RV chemicals to treat our black tank. So with that being said, if it's number 1, that's just liquids, hit your pedal, flush it down the drain. If it's number 2, solids, we want to hold that pedal down just a little bit to where that valve doesn't open at the bottom, but we have water coming out of that spigot right there. We want to fill that bowl half to 3/4 of the way, and then we flush it. That way there's enough water to help push those solids down to the black tank, and it'll reduce your opportunity for a clog. Beyond that, like I said, RV toilet paper, and then your chemicals, you're going to go ahead and input to your black tank right here at your toilet. Over here, we're going to have our Furrion tankless water heater control. Pretty easy to operate. Just turn it on. We have Fahrenheit or Celsius. We can change that right here at the bottom. Then we have our up and down arrows to adjust what we want that water temperature to be coming out of that tankless water heater system. Here we have our flame icon. When we turn our hot water on, that icon should light up. That means that it is beginning to heat our water, and then our temperature will begin to rise for that hot water output. In our kitchen, our bathrooms, all that stuff, we're going to notice we have access to all of our fixtures and stuff. We want to make sure that those fixtures are tight. During wintertime, summertime, all this stuff, the temperature change, some of that stuff can loosen up, especially while you're traveling down the road, right? So I want to make sure all that stuff is tight in there so we don't have any little water leaks damaging our wood panels around that system. We're going to see little vents all over the place. That is where our heat comes in. So our heat doesn't come out of our floor and it doesn't come out of the ceiling. It's only going to come out of these vents that are built into our cabinets. You're also generally going to have some motion lighting down here at the bottom. Turn that on, it'll shut off. You have a little sensor right here at the bottom that will pick up any motion for any nighttime lighting that you may want. As we mentioned, for our AC system, we do have ducted vents all throughout our unit. We have our ceiling assemblies. You have a vent right here that behind that vent is a screen filter. We want to clean that out every so often. We pull these two little tabs down right here. We can pull that filter out and clean it. It is reusable. We want to do that on a regular basis so we're not restricting air to our AC and it can work efficiently. Beyond that, you have your quick dump. That quick dump, if we open it up, will force air just in this room. It takes it out of our racetrack air vents for that ducted system right there, and it just forces it out of here. So if we want that, we can do that. If we want it going and circulating throughout our entire unit, we want to shut that off. In here, we are going to have that separate AC system. This one's only going to operate just that AC. It's not going to operate the furnace. So just keep that in mind. Your main AC in your living room is generally going to operate your furnace. See a little access panel right here. That is for the back of our shower. We can notice there. Beyond that, not much else to look at in our Reflection 150 series. A little storage under the bed, and that pretty much wraps it up. If you have any questions, leave them down in the comments. Hopefully this helped refresh your memory on operation for your Grand Design Reflection. And thanks for watching here at Great American RV.
Well, we hope you found that resourceful, but wait, there's more information on our Great American RV YouTube channel. This channel right here, find the playlist Hap's Helpful Hacks. We go over different products in this unit and we'll take a deeper dive with more diagnostics, more information, as well as helpful tips when you're out camping. Tell your buddies, tell your friends, like, share, subscribe, do all those awesome things on YouTube, TikTok, wherever you found us, and keep watching here at Great American RV Superstores, where we bring the how-to you.